Hello and welcome to another tutorial from CamiPaige Boutique. I'm Brooke Tina Hill and I have a confession to make. I love everything Valentine's Day. I love pink, I love purple, I love red, hearts, flowers, you name it. So in the spirit of this romantic-filled time of year, I thought I would share how to make this Valentine's Day candy heart and doodle custom tumbler. This was inspired by the classic candy hearts and all of the doodles I would make in my notebook about crushes in high school and all the MASH I played with friends. So I guess there's a little bit of a throwback Valentine's Day action right here. As always, all the products I used will be listed in the description below, and you might even find a coupon code or two that saves you some coin. Also, come join our exclusive Facebook group where you can take advantage of upcoming freebies and giveaways that you aren't going to want to miss. So without further hesitation, let's go ahead and get started. For this design, I started with a fully prepped and sanded 15-ounce fatty from Parish Tumblers, spray painted it with candy pink, and I let that dry overnight just to make sure it's nice and cured before I moved into the next steps. Then I mixed up about 10 milliliters of a little extra ink epoxy, and I started to apply between 1 to 2 milliliters of epoxy over the entire surface of the cup. I do this because I prefer to apply my glitters to the cup using the epoxy method, and I let that sit for about 1 or 2 minutes, and then I move into adding my glitters. All of the glitters I'm using are brand new exclusive mixes from Boujie Glitter Boutique, and I am so excited to be using them on this cup. But what I did is I chose probably between 4 and 5 different glitters that I wanted to use, and we are going to be laying them down about, I would say in little almost circles about 1.5 inches wide. So just like little dollops almost of the different glitter colors. And I'm going to do this and move around the different, just like the entire circumference of the cup. So the color there is called Cupid's Revenge, and I know that I want to add probably 2 or 3 little dollops of the glitter that I will be using then as the peekaboos for the candy hearts. After that, I move into a color called French Kiss, and I absolutely love this color because it has a little bit of a pink shift to it, and you can see there, but it definitely has golds and silvers in it as well, and it definitely pulled more pink because of the pink base, but it is absolutely beautiful. So I just apply little circles around the cup, and again, I know I kind of explained it, but the reason why we're doing it in this method is because we want the candy hearts to be different glitter colors. So right here, I'm using another color called Love Letter, and I absolutely love the way this looks, but you can really do this with any glitter combinations, and you just want to make sure that you're choosing placements that are going to allow you to space your candy hearts just effectively around the cup, because you don't want them right on top of each other, but again, you don't want them too spread out to where you don't have a cohesive look for your cup. After I got the 3 mixes laid down, I went ahead and I grabbed a couple of my traditional favorites, which were Lavender Burst and Pink Flutter. So Lavender Burst, again, I came in and I just laid down like I did the other 3, just in about 1.5 inch little circles around the cup and filled in everything just to make sure that I had great coverage. After I got the Lavender Burst everywhere I wanted it, I grabbed Pink Flutter, which Pink Flutter, if you do not have this glitter, I cannot say enough about it. It's just absolutely beautiful, and it's a nice pink mix. But I came in and I just went over everything else around the cup. So if there was an open space, I just kind of did not hold back, just let it rip around the entire cup and just filled in any of the spaces. That way, when we're laying down our peekaboos, if there is a spot that we just happen to overlay it and we don't get enough coverage of the colors that we laid down, you're not just gonna have just like spray paint there. You're gonna have a nice, pretty glitter filled in spot. So I come in like right here and I'm just sprinkling it everywhere, just making sure that we have full coverage. Now, I did want to make sure to avoid some of the spots that we had already laid down those mixes because I didn't want to take away from the beautiful color differences that we did have. So just make sure that you get a nice coat with everything filled in, and then you should be good to go. So here you can see it all finished up, and I know it looks really weird and really random, but I promise it's all going to come together. Once I was happy with the coverage, I went ahead and I just took the cup and rolled it on some cardstock. And what this does is it allows all the chunky mixes to lay flat and make it easier to get a nice smooth surface with your next coats of epoxy. I let that dry for about 2 hours, and then I moved into 2 coats of epoxy, each coat being about 20 milliliters, and letting them dry for about 4 to 6 hours between each coat, just so it was dry to the touch and ready for the next steps. After my second coat of epoxy is dry to the touch, I grab my 120 grit flap wheel and I just put my Dremel on about the 8 or 10 setting and go around the cup and expose an even sliver of stainless steel for my next coats of epoxy to adhere to. This is just to make sure that you have an amazing seal and that you don't have any liquids getting behind the epoxy. Then I grab my 80 grit sanding block and smooth down any pokey bits that might have popped up and make sure that it's comfortable when drinking out of the cup directly. Once I was happy with the top rim of my cup, I grabbed my Peekaboo secret weapon. And what this is this is an Orbital Sander, and I love to use this because it's got a nice rigid surface. So it's a hard plate that the 120 grit sandpaper goes on. And what this does is it allows it to knock down the high parts of your cup without digging in further into your low parts. So it's like a nice rigid surface. And all I do is I just hold my sander in place and I rock the cup back and forth to get a nice smooth surface. I know it can be daunting because you're like, oh my gosh, this is a power tool, but I cannot emphasize enough how much this makes a difference on my Peekaboos or just my cups in general. So I just move around the cup until I know that I have a nice smooth epoxy surface. Then once I'm done with this, I will go ahead and wash it with Dawn dish soap and make sure that it's fully dry before moving into spray paint. And something that is truly, truly optional is I also like to use my Orbital Sander to get the bottoms of my cup smooth. Now, the reason why I do this is because literally any pokey bits or any rough spots with your glitter on the edges will show through your spray paint. So this is the best way that I've found to really take that taken care of. And now it is Peekaboo Decal time. So I got this file from Creative Fabrica and I will link it below. And what I did is I uploaded each of the candy hearts individually, and I'm going to show you how I got the sizing and everything done for this. So I'm using 12 hearts for my design. And what I'm doing here is I am taking each of the candy hearts and welding everything together for each heart. So I'll show you kind of when I do this. So I'll take the heart, weld everything, including the outlines and the letters, and resize it to 1.5 inches wide. And then I did this for all of them. So you want to make sure that you have them all welded and resized. And the reason why we do this is because we want to make sure that our outlines and the letters have plenty of room for the Peekaboo to show through. And then that way the outlines and the letters will completely line up perfectly when you do it. I made them all one color and then I cut them on removable vinyl, and I just came through and started to place them over my glitter spots. So as you can see, I have this super sexy lime green vinyl, and all I'm doing is first off, I weeded them, but I am just taking my X-Acto knife, picking them up with the knife so that you don't have to use transfer tape, and just lining them up over the glitter spots that we had put down. This is a pretty simple process, and now you can kind of see why we made the glitter spots so big, so that we would have ample coverage for each of the hearts. So I'm just moving them around, and I'm also trying to take note that how I'm laying the hearts down, because you don't want them perfectly straight up and down. So I'm making sure that they're kind of alternating in how they lay. So like one's tilting to the left, one's tilting to the right, one's kind of more straight but a little off center, and just making sure you have more of that organic feel to the way you lay down your hearts. Now, there's no right or wrong to this. It's just however you want your hearts to lay down. But I also have some spots where I have more hearts kind of centered together and then more kind of spread apart. And that was so that I could add more of the foil elements that you'll see in a minute. But I also was not happy with where a couple of the hearts laid down. So don't be afraid to just pick them up, move them where you want them, because I swear you'll be more happy at the end, or happier at the end, when you come to the next steps. Once I was happy with the placement of the hearts, I grabbed 2 colors spray paint because we are going to be doing an ombre, and I started with a candy pink at the bottom and top of the cup, and I am just lightly spraying just like little almost spritzes of paint to make sure that I don't have any drips, because when you're doing a peekaboo, any drips are going to show. So I did the top, got nice, great coverage there. Then I went to the bottom, which I know the cup is upside down. And then I came in with Dreamy Lavender, which is a super pretty purple in the middle, and just got like a nice ombre of the 2 colors. And then it was time to remove my peekaboo hearts. So super easy process. Just make sure that you're taking your time and you're gonna get a wonderful spray paint coat. I let the spray paint dry overnight just to make sure that it wasn't going to be sticky or I didn't have any just kind of parts that would show fingerprints. And then it was time to remove the hearts. So again, I'm using my dental pick tool, which I absolutely am obsessed with for removing peekaboos, because since it allows me to pick up kind of vinyl wherever I want to, I don't run the risk of scratching my spray paint or having any like oopsies that I'll have to come back and fix. So I highly recommend the dental pick tool. And I'm just going around the cup and removing the removable vinyl and then making sure that I'm happy that with the spray paint that there aren't any places that I need to kind of fix. And don't forget the bottom, because I did put a heart down there and I forgot to remove it and I didn't film it for this part. Once I got all of the candy heart vinyl removed, I created some little heart stencils in Design Space, and I am just placing them kind of every which way around the cup, but also kind of taking in mind how I have the other hearts oriented and trying to make sure that I have them moving differently, if that makes sense. So just taking, well, not really taking my time, but just placing the heart stencils around the cup. And what we're going to be doing is we are going to actually be filling these different hearts with foils around the cup. So I have 3 different foils that we'll be using. And if you've seen me apply the foils before, I'm using the exact same methodology. But one thing I do want to emphasize here is that you really want to make sure that you've given your spray paint enough time to cure so that you're not lifting that up. So that's why I let this dry overnight, and that you're also using either stencil vinyl or removable vinyl so that you aren't pulling any of that pretty paint up. My preferred method of applying flakes is just using a disappearing glue stick. So this is just a purple glue stick from Elmer's. And then I take the flakes out and just apply them with tweezers or my fingers, whatever kind of I'm feeling for the day. But these red flakes are from Radioactive Glitter, and actually all 3 of the flakes that I'm using are awesome. They're super vibrant, so you can't go wrong with any of them. But the red is from Radioactive, the pink we'll be using is from Woody's Goodies, and the purple is from PDB Studio. So all I do is make sure that I have the glue nice and covered with the foil the way I want it, and then it's time to remove the stencil. Now, the look I am going for is definitely just kind of more organic and just kind of the whimsicalness of a notebook. But if you wanted more kind of uniform hearts, you could definitely cut these out from vinyl and it would look just as good, but maybe just a little bit of a cleaner look. After that, I got that first heart done, I moved into the second, just using the same technique. But one thing I do want to call out here is as I move around the cup, you'll see that there will be little parts of the flakes just kind of adhering to the spray paint. I wanted that on purpose. I like the way that that looks. It gives the cup a nice little shine, and I like the different color bits kind of intertwined within the different hearts. Now, if you do not like that look, and if that's not what you're going for, you want more clean lines, first you can obviously switch over to vinyl. Or what you could do is before this step is you could do a coat of epoxy over the spray paint, and it helps to not have the bits of the foil that kind of come off when you're working at it attached to the spray paint, because I've found that the flakes don't like to adhere to epoxy as much as they like to adhere to the spray paint. So I just worked my way around the cup, just using all 3 of the colors, just alternating as I move. And then it's time to kind of bring in our chip brush. So this is just a super cheap, I think it's a 1.5 inch chip brush. And this is where you really start to see the sparkly bits. And this is what I was talking about. The sparkly bits love to adhere to spray paint. So you will see them start to showcase, but if you do not like them, definitely go into a coat of epoxy ahead of time. And then I just continue to move around the cup. Now, you could do the chip brush after you have all the hearts done. You could do the chip brush after you just do one. It's kind of whatever process works best for you. And do not feel like there is any right or wrong when doing this. One thing I did end up doing is after I was done with all of the hearts, I did put some just little kind of different pieces, just like almost little lines, not little lines, but just like dollops of the glue stick down, and just added a little more flake to the cup because I did want that extra sparkliness, but I didn't film it because it was kind of a last minute thing. And then I also, I know this is weird, but I picked up some of the flakes that were on my table just by pushing them down and then pushed them into the paint, and they adhered really well, and it gave me a lot of that just added detail that I liked. Once I'm happy with all of the foil flakes and also our little foil hearts, I sealed these twice with just super light coats of 2X gloss spray paint, and then I went into a coat of 15 milliliters of a little extra ink epoxy just to give me a nice smooth surface for our decals and little added design elements. After that coat of epoxy was dry, I added the SVGs for the candy hearts back into Design Space, and I made them to where each of the candy heart offsets, so like the outlines and the words, were 2 colors. So I did 2 colors of each, which was 6 colors of vinyl, since we added 12 hearts to the cup. I know it's math, I'm sorry, but I just made sure to delete the background out of the candy hearts and just kept the outlines and the words, and that's how we got our offsets for this design. I think it turned out super cute, and I will tell you, it is a bit of a puzzle trying to figure out what candy hearts go with what peekaboo shapes, but I think they are super cute, and I love the way that they turned out. After I have all of the vinyl for the candy hearts laid down, I grabbed a white acrylic paint pen and I start to make my little doodle designs around the cup. So first I focus on the foil hearts that we laid down, and I am not trying to match the outlines of the foil hearts perfectly at all. I'm moving them to where they're a little offset. I'm just making them bigger and more kind of exaggerated, just to get kind of that doodle element going that I was talking about at the beginning of this tutorial. So I just move around, and then also I just add little polka dots here or there just to kind of add some whimsy to the cup. Now, one of my hacks I highly recommend is just to keep a post-it note off to the side, so that way you get a nice good coverage of your pen and that you can just dab it over to the side, because acrylic pens never like to cooperate, and I think it just gives you that more vibrant white pop with the ink if you do that. Also, if you mess up, don't worry, you can just wipe it off. That's why we do our coat of epoxy before this. But if the acrylic paint is being a little stingy, you can just use a little bit of alcohol and it will come right off. And I just feel like the doodle elements are just so freaking cute, and it really helps to bring the entire look of this cup together. I'm pretty obsessed, but I'd love to hear what you guys think. Once I let the acrylic paint dry, which was just about maybe 15 minutes, I want to show you this brand new product that I am working with. So I feel like 90% of my life is spent mixing epoxy. So I 3D printed what I like to call a boat prop, and I attach it to my Dremel. Now here I just use it on probably the 4 setting, and all I do is I put the boat prop into my epoxy. Granted, this is 60 milliliters because I'm working on a couple cups at this time. And I just let the boat prop do the mixing. This makes it so much easier. It speeds up the process, you can see here. And I wanted to make sure that I worked on a design that wasn't going to insert a ton of bubbles into my epoxy, because I've worked with other mixers in the past and it turned my epoxy to milk. So this speeds up the process. Again, you want to mix it on low, and you can see there that there are no bubbles, and it makes this so much easier, just so much easier. I can't even say it enough. If you're interested in the boat prop epoxy mixer, I will definitely link it below. It's on the CamiPaige website, so definitely be sure to check it out. But this cup needed 2 final coats of epoxy. I used about 20 milliliters for each coat, letting them dry for about 6 hours between each coat, and this baby was done. I think this cup came out so cute. It completely gives me the throwback high school Valentine's Day vibes, and I think it's just perfect for this time of year. I hope that this tutorial, it inspires you to either replicate this design or create with these kinds of techniques and just make your own kind of beautiful. As always, thank you for watching. I really don't think you guys have any idea how much it means to me. If you like this tutorial, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe so you can see future videos. You can also ring the bell so you are notified of all future cup making goodies. Thank you again. I love you guys. Bye.